writing. I don't know what happened to my wing woman, Maggie. So I'm hoping she's still going to drop by. But at the moment, I just decided I'm going to start the live stream because I don't want to keep being late for my own live stream because I would be bad. So hi to everyone here right this moment, specifically Amber, because Amber took time off from packing for her move and she took time to actually start watching this anyway. So thanks so much for joining. But yeah, and then I also just want to say hello to oh goodness. I am on StreamYard today, so everything is just coming at me super fast. I'm actually kind of shocked at the moment at how fast this is going. So it's actually awesome. But anyway, so back on my tangent. So before I go anywhere else, hi to Naked Firefly. Thanks so much for joining. And also to anyone who's going to watch in the future, welcome. And I hope you guys enjoy this and find some kind of value from this and so on. So, right, I'm kind of a bit flabbergasted right now because I don't know what happened to Maggie. I think she actually responded. So I'm actually still on the two computers thing, so sorry about that. I am getting better at this, but I'm actually transferring to this computer. So in future, I will actually be better about multitasking. So let me just check what Maggie says. Right, okay. So oh goodness, sorry. See, I am so bad. I'm surprised that I can actually walk and chew gum at the same time. So Maggie just let me know that she is trying to get on to the chat with us, but she is having connection issues. So we'll see if she manages to get by. Right, so I can actually do this now. So I want to say, yeah, it's pretty awesome. I did a test drive of it probably about like 2-3 weeks ago, but it was just literally to see how easily I could actually get more than one person onto a writing chat with me live. So I didn't really do any serious like test runs of how fast people respond and stuff. So I have to say I think it is actually better than what happens with the lag between the video and YouTube. So I'm seeing you guys' responses faster. It seems to match up with us much better. So I think if you haven't signed up yet, do. It's actually really easy to sign up and they're quite cool and they have like a Facebook group, for advice and tips and stuff. So I think it's quite handy. So let me just ask, how did you guys' Camp Nano go? I ended up not winning. I did a little over 47,000 words, which is actually something that I am really happy with because even though it's a good like 13,000 words short of what I was aiming for, I actually wrote more just in July than I did in 3 months before that. So I'm actually really happy with how that turned out, and I'm going to actually repeat the process now of building up my momentum by starting with small word counts and working my way up again. But now, obviously, I can do a little bit more. So, because I actually did find that I have quite a how can I put it? I actually had a lot more capacity to write a lot more words than I actually thought I could do because I was actually thinking that maybe if I push I could get to 3,000 words a day eventually, but I actually managed to do quite well, but then I kind of just got sidetracked and yeah. But I think I can do it again, so that's why I will be doing it all over with the building up because I think I might actually be working up to past 3,000 words per day towards more like 3,500 because every time I did cross 3,000 words, that was more where I ended up. So I think that might be my more natural kind of rate. So that's what I'll be trying to do, but I'll let you guys know how that's going. Amber says, I didn't get to it because of the chaos of the packing. Yeah, you have my total and complete sympathy. It is so crap to have to pack for moving. You do not understand how much sympathy I have. It sucks. And then Naked Firefly says, I didn't win with the project I started with, but I ended up editing my romance. You know, I actually, that's for me, I think that's still a win because if you are editing, it's still actually getting something ready for publishing. So even if you're not writing, it's actually really awesome. So I think you did a good thing, even if you didn't win, or didn't win with your original project. As long as you get back to that project. Hi, Sky, how are you doing? I hope you did well, and let me know how you did with your Camp NaNoWriMo. So, Amber says, I'm going to use September and October to work on edits of Unknown Family and finish writing Unknown Happiness for Nana. That's cool. I think that's a very good strategy to follow. I wish I could say that I'm going to do something similar with what I'm working on, where I'm finishing my one book and then I'm going to start drafting the next book. But I'm not that optimistic. I think it's just a little bit too involved because I have this massive project going on. So I really want to get to its sequel, and I really wish that I could start with it on Nano, but I know that if I do that, I'm going to deeply regret it later. So probably just going to keep on editing right through. I'm trying to get it done by the end of the year, but I don't know if I'm going to make it. Sky says, I won Nano as I met my word count goal, but I wanted to finish the project I was working on. And I got lazy the last 3 days and didn't. Yeah, I know that feeling. That's kind of what happened with me, except I kind of got lazy like the final entire week of Camp Nano. Although it wasn't really lazy, it was more just like my brain just went, ooh, shiny idea. Gone off completely in the opposite direction, and I didn't get back to writing until like this week again. So a little bit sucky, but you know what? Sometimes that happens. I feel like if we're lazy, then it means that we're actually going to need to be lazy a little bit. So it's not something to feel bad about. But Sky says, I am rewriting and finishing it this month. Yeah, you do. Go, girl. You can do this. So now, before I do anything else, I just saw that my wing woman has appeared. So I'm just going to add her into the feed quickly, and then we can actually get into the live stream. Hi, Maggie.
Hey.
Welcome. I'm so glad. I was starting to worry about am I all alone?
Sorry, I just had connection issues, so trying to get everything sorted out took a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm glad to see you because I was thinking it's like, oh no, I don't want to talk about marketing all alone today.
That's understandable.
Yeah. So how did your Camp NaNoWriMo go? That was what we actually got to talking about while we waited for you.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually did reach my goal. So that was 2,400 minutes. So I managed to finish that before the month ended. And then the story isn't finished. Of course, it's still got I think I'm halfway through. So it needs another 40,000, 50,000 words maybe before it actually wraps up. But it's a good start because I had 0 in the beginning to start with.
No, awesome. So I'm so glad for you. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yay! Yeah, I'm so happy. No, that's awesome, and I'm really looking forward to hearing some more snippets.
Of course.
All right, so I just saw that Dal actually also joined, so I just want to say hi to Dal and thank you so much for joining and for stopping by, and also for the subscription because I saw she subscribed earlier. So I just wanted to say a very special welcome to today's writing chat because I think it's the first time she showed up here. And then let me just see, there's a chat going on, but it's not for us. All right, so marketing. Da, da, da. Yeah. What is like your guys' like um feeling of like marketing? Because I have to say I have like a very distinct love-hate relationship with it, and it's like, yeah, really annoying. So what do you guys think of it? And yeah, we can start there and see where it goes from there in that direction. So yeah, all right, Maggie, you start.
Well, I have the same kind of love-hate relationship with marketing because a lot of the time it takes time away to actually work on some of that. And I don't know, marketing, it's always difficult because it's like, okay, what audience are you targeting? So you kind of have to adjust what you're doing to the target audience. Let's see. I don't know if you want to mention the comment.
Yeah, let's just do that because I saw it coming up and the conversation is moving really quickly. So I'm just going to sometimes pop stuff up and we can go off on tangents and just get back on subject.
Okay.
But yeah, to maybe just introduce yourself to Sky and then.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Megan, Maggie. Either really works for me. And I'm a writer. I've worked with Misha lately. We're in the same camp, Nano Cabin. So sometimes I manage to come on the live stream and talk with Misha about writing. So I'm a young adult kind of writer, and I mostly focus on fantasy fiction. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Cool. Let me just see before we get on. Let's see if there's anything happening in the comments that we should also continue on. So that is what author Amber S. Craft said. I need to market earlier than just mentioning it in streams, but the time it takes. Yeah, that's actually exactly where my love-hate relationship actually also gets into because it's really hard for me to balance the social media market, or not just the social media, but the marketing aspect of it, and then get into the writing and finish the writing and do the day job and all that stuff. So that's kind of where if you have limited time, then it's like, am I going to market my book or am I going to write my book? I'm going to write my book. So that's kind of where my love-hate relationship comes from. But I know that it's something that I have to do, and that's actually where this whole topic actually originally came from.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when we started doing these live streams together, our cabin, that's now April?
Yeah, I want to say it was the first cabin session of this year, which would be April. So
yeah,
it's been a little while.
Yeah, it feels like longer. It feels like we know each other forever, but like yeah, so in April I already had like my marketing stuff planned to a large extent, but I just haven't been able to sit down and finish my plan, which means I haven't been able to actually go into the full launch of it yet, which is really annoying. But even when I was talking about it in April, saying, no, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to call my writing chat, and all that stuff, because there is actually a name for the writing chat, which I haven't started using because I haven't implemented my plan yet. So that's how bad I am about this. But then someone actually suggested that we should actually talk about marketing because I think people are curious about what I've been doing. So I really hope they end up watching this later because magically they're all like not here. Anyway, so let me just see what's happening in the stream. Yeah, Dol says a lot of my time goes into studying social media platforms. Yeah, I think that's actually a major thing that we should definitely talk about a bit, like as we go through the subject, because social media is really important, and the fact is it always changes, so you can have it down right now and the next week they cancel Hangouts on air and your backup for live streaming has vanished. So yeah, it sucks. Anyway, so it definitely, I can completely understand why a lot of your time goes into it. Fortunately for me, I'm in the same boat, but I'm getting paid to do it. So because someone hired me to write a thing about doing marketing, which I'm actually finding so useful because it's helping me with my own marketing. So, and that's kind of where this chat is from. I can't really talk about the actual toolkit itself, but the stuff I've learned, I'm willing to share. So that's kind of where this is coming from. Sky says, I don't have to worry about marketing much until I actually have some works published. There are some things I need to do now, but not as heavy as I will once published.
Oh, that's an interesting kind of topic. Do you market before you actually have something done and start building an audience, or do you wait until you actually have something done and start marketing after? So yeah. I've heard mixed things on that, actually.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's a very important thing to consider, and we can definitely talk about it now. I just want to go through all the comments, then we can start rolling back again and then just get into a flow again. So guys, you don't understand how hard it is actually for me to stay in a flow, because flow is all in my stories, but when I'm actually having conversations and being live and stuff, my brain's just tangent. So sorry about that, but that's just the way my brain works. It's all over, and then I kind of have to start gathering my thoughts back together when I'm writing. So that's kind of why I write. But yeah, all right. So let's see. Sky also said, I feel it's a necessary evil, but it doesn't mean I like it. Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it in a nutshell as well. It just really, yeah, it can be fun. And for example, I love the writing streams. These are awesome because it's just giving me an opportunity to hang out with you guys. And it's not really marketing, but in a sense, it's also marketing. So we can talk about that a little later as well. But it's just a little bit of both. But it's marketing without marketing, which is actually something I really like. So that's kind of why I love doing this so much. So Amber says, it's the reason Jazz and I started Journey to Publication streams was to help us do it more ourselves, but life hated us and we had to stop. Oh, that's sad. Yeah, yeah, I think it's a pity that you had to stop, and it's a pity I didn't know about them, because I would really be interested in seeing what you have to say. So I'll go look them up if they're still on your channel, and then get to watch them a little bit, because I think it's a handy subject to talk about. So. By the way, Megan, please feel free to jump in if you feel like I'm talking too much, because I'm feeling like I'm talking too much.
No, you're doing good. I mean, you're reading the other comments, so of course you're talking a little bit.
So Amber also said, I need to stop and figure out newsletters so I can promote more, but feels like no one wants to know about my non-writing life. Laugh out loud. So yeah, I know. I've actually, it's kind of related to this when do you start marketing thing, because a lot of people are actually shocked to hear that despite the fact that I actually have a surprisingly large following, on Wattpad and places like that, because of my books being there. And when I say surprisingly large following, I'm talking a few thousand people. I don't have a newsletter, and there was a very specific reason for it. But I have to say, I'm kind of starting to regret my life decisions on that one. So yeah, and by the way, I'm being photobombed by my cat, so, in case you guys are seeing movements. But yeah. Yes, Dal says, I have the same problem. I write better than I speak. Yeah, it's not just I'm actually a good speaker, but usually if I'm doing speeches, not conversationally, I feel like my brain just does. I think the thing is I'm a really lateral thinker, so I'll have a random thing come up to me while I'm talking. I'm like, oh yeah, this relates totally, and then not everyone can actually understand why I think it relates, and that's kind of annoying. But yeah. I'm trying to be better about it, just suck it. And then Dahl says it's a form of collaboration which counts as marketing, and there's some organic aspect to it, which is nice. Yeah, this is about the live streams, I think.
Okay.
No, don't. Sorry, my cat is scratching my chair, and that is a very bad thing of her.
Yeah,
So,
I guess like live streams, it's unscripted, so it's definitely you don't know what's going to happen. Like maybe a cat will appear or something.
And show her your backside. That's the thing. So, yeah, no, it's definitely I like that live collaboration feeling of it, because it's like a it's more like a direct relationship with people instead of like buy my book. That kind of thing doesn't really work well for me. So I much prefer this kind of thing. So Sky says, I think the free marketing options are definitely something to start early. A website is definitely something you can start way before you publish. The same with blogs and social media platforms. Yeah, those are definitely, it's a very valid point that it's a good idea with free marketing, because you have to have organic growth. So it is a good idea to start working with them as early as possible. But there are a few buts about that. So we are getting back to this, but the comments are keeping coming. So we will get to it, but we can yeah. Sorry. Okay, let's try again. Something else Sky said, newsletters can go either way. You can start them before publishing, but I see a lot of people recommending them only once you have something to offer as a reader magnet. Yeah. It was actually my reason for not having a newsletter is a little different, so we can talk about that a little bit. But yeah, we can definitely talk about this, because I think when we talk about like reader magnets and stuff like that, then it's definitely it's a bit more technical. So I think it's definitely something we should like really get into. And then Sky says you can't edit live streams while live. Yeah, exactly. That's like this is like me unfiltered. It's not. I feel like I have a completely different persona when I'm live compared to like when I'm on a video, because if I say or do anything on a video, that's even if it's just saying then it's gone. Whereas at the moment, oh well. So yeah. But yeah. All right. So I think I finally got us ahead of the comments. So if you guys decided to take pity on me and not comment until I got to the end, thank you very much. So, but now we can comment again, because I actually love the comments as much as I'm sounding like a grouch about it. So yeah, so now we get to when do you start doing the marketing? And that's actually a really interesting question. From my experience, let me tell you a bit about my experience. I started marketing or at least building my platform in 2000, and I want to say 2010. So that's like almost a decade, and I built it up, and it was awesome. And I had this massive community of people interested in what I'm doing. And when I say massive, it's like for an unknown writer, I had between like I want to say blogging, Twitter, Facebook, and what else? Google Plus. Yeah, that's giving away my age now, Google Plus. But anyway, so between those, I had over 10,000 people following me. And the interesting thing about that was when my first book came out, the huge sum total of 12 people bought my book. So that is like, and I'm not, it's like, it's not, I'm not doing this for the sympathy vote here, but it's just to go to say that I think I understand the idea of building a platform, but I do think there's something to be said of taking a long-term view and having a book out and then marketing, because then you know who you are marketing to.
Right.
Rather than actually just going, well, welcome everybody, come on in. I'm really good at this blogging thing, so come following me and stuff. And then they're just not interested in what you're wanting to sell. So, yeah, that's kind of what I found about it, and that was also part of the reason why I still don't have a newsletter, because getting burned in that way, like after years and years, I'm talking about like 5 years into my blogging and networking and stuff, and that was what happened. And I'm like, well, 5 years went just, down the drain. That was just painful. So I was just like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to do the newsletter thing yet because nobody cares. I'm not, what am I going to newsletter to? Like 12 people. So I'm like, no, that's not going to work. And then to get exposure, I actually went a bit of a different route, and instead of putting my books on permafree on Amazon, I posted them on Wattpad. And I got featured, and getting featured is really awesome because you get like a lot of traction really quickly. And that was, so within like months of me saying like I am not doing a newsletter, I like have all these hundreds of people who's like, when is the next book, what's happening, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, damn, I should have had a newsletter. So it was like, yeah, it's really, I kind of feel like, I don't know, so it's definitely something I want to ask you guys, is like, when do you think you should do the social networking and newsletter thing? Because yeah, I feel like I started some stuff too early, and then I started other stuff too late, and I'm like, do you know how? What are you doing? What am I going to do? So I'm really interested in your responses. What do you think, Megan?
I wish there was like a manual or something that talked about, because it's just so confusing. It's like, okay, I didn't really get into it either until after I had something marketable. And so it was kind of like jumping on later. It's like, oh, well, this is basically coming out in maybe like, a couple months. And so I didn't really have a following, but it was, yeah. So I'm terrible at marketing. I have no idea like which sites or anything. And then kind of like you were saying with newsletter, I'm like, well, who wants to hear what's going on here? I don't think I have enough going on to actually fill a newsletter, to make it worth the time, I guess, to put into it. And then I always feel bad because I feel like I'm bothering people. So maybe that's also why I don't like marketing, is because I feel like I'm intruding on their time, saying, pay attention to this for 1 second. But I feel like everybody's so busy that they maybe don't want to pay attention to, something that I send them. So that's my struggle with marketing.
Yeah, I hear you. I completely, yeah, I completely have sympathy with your situation. So I just saw Amber said, I've had a website for years, but have to switch to one with blogs so I can post and promote there as well. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I've been actually talking, sorry, I like something fell on my nose. Anyway, so here I am, stopping being rude. So anyway, sitting on my hands. Yeah, it's definitely, I've been reading a lot about like blogging and websites and stuff again because I'm being paid to do it, so I have to do it. So it's actually really interesting for me because I started blogging. So my marketing stuff and my platform building actually started with blogging, and I still have my blog from back then. And the interesting thing was, but the whole way in which I did it is actually kind of wrong. It sounds really weird for me to say it, but everybody in my community, in the blogging community, had this thing of saying, no, but blogging is dying and it's going extinct and nobody wants to blog anymore. But actually, there are people who have actually nothing that they're selling except for just blogging regularly, and they're selling space on their blog and they're making living from it. So is it really that blogging is dead, or is it just that I've been doing it wrong? So I kind of went with the assumption that, yes, you idiot, you did it the wrong way. Yay! But the positive side is, once you realize what you've been doing wrong, and this is what I have had like a rough couple of months this year, realizing how much I have been doing wrong. So once you realize that, at least the positive side is you can start fixing it. So that's at least a good thing. So I think getting a blog is a good idea if you are able. That's another caveat. If you are able to regularly update it, because if you can't, there's not really a point. I don't think.
Yeah.
But people might disagree with me. But
That's interesting. So I have a blog, and I post once a week because I'm like, I want to overload content, and if someone like subscribes to it, so they get an email every time I update a post, then they only get it once a week. But I make sure it's the same day every week so that it's consistent. And if people are actually reading it, they know, okay, on Tuesdays, this is the day that something new is going to come out on the blog. But at the same time, it's do you have the time? Do you actually have interesting content? Do people actually want to read what you wrote? So that's always kind of, I don't know. I don't know if that's up to you or if it's just kind of whether or not people are interested in the same things that you're interested in.
Yeah, I think from what I've been doing the research about finding the best way to blog, they actually say weekly is the best, especially if you do once a week and do a specific day in a week where you're saying this on Fridays I post, which is actually the same reason why I'm kind of fussy about not moving my time around with these writing streams, because it's actually the same reason.
Yeah.
It's about the search engine optimization. The algorithms actually prefer blogs that regularly post and update and are predictable to those who are not. And the reason why, so people might go, okay, well, then it's better to post daily. And in a sense, it is. I did that when I started, like for the first, I want to say 5 years of blogging. I posted Monday to Friday, sometimes even Monday through Sunday.
Oh.
Every day. So my blog grew fast, but I feel like in a sense, what this research that I've been doing kind of revealed is that it actually damages your ability to create a community, in the sense that if I write a post on Friday, you might read it on Friday, someone else might read it on Monday, someone else might read it on Thursday. So everyone who's reading it throughout the week until the next post comes out gets a chance to interact with each other and to put in their comments. Where if you post every day, then everybody who has different days that they're going to show up, they're not going to necessarily have time to read your whole week's output. So in the end, they just respond to the thing like that happened today, and then so they're not really getting into a cohesive little unit or community. So
yeah,
it was interesting for me as well to read that. I'm like, yeah, at least now I don't feel bad of doing the absolute minimum on my blog. Yeah. So,
right. At least once a week.
once a week. So let me just see. I see we've had a few comments again. So Amber says this is a bit of a callback, right? I think back to our previous, like what we were talking about. I wish we had like a schedule. She says there are places that give you layout times, but I feel like it's different from author to author. Yeah, I'm actually the whole marketing thing. I have to say I'm actually really skeptical about conventional wisdom on marketing, if I can put it that way, especially book marketing, because it's a long story. So because I know some of you guys are going to follow that wisdom, so I'm not calling you guys stupid. I'm just not seeing how it would work for me. So that's just, I want to say that right up front. But I think stuff like, oh no, you do this and this and this in this order. You do it this day and this day and this day, and you do it this way and this way. I feel like that's probably not the best way to approach marketing, because I don't think people quite think through their advice when they're sharing marketing advice like that. And like you said, it differs from writer to writer. So I feel like in a way, it's actually necessary for writers to actually do all this kind of research for themselves, because I can tell you, having done this for myself, my whole world, my mind just went like, it's just completely changed the way I'm looking at marketing. And it's just because I went and I took the time it did help again that I got paid to do it, but just doing that stuff and figuring out it's not necessarily just, selling books, but just marketing period has a certain set of best practices, but it's necessary to know why certain things are done in a certain way. If you don't, because the thing is, if you don't agree with it, then it means that you can change it to fit you better. But you can't do that if someone just says, listen, here's a 10-point instruction manual to market your book. And I promise you it's going to sell you 1,000,000 copies. It's like,
yeah, there's something suspicious about that claim.
yes. Why, yes, there is. So I'm making no such claims, but one day, maybe, hopefully, I will sell 1,000,000 books and I'm like, well, I did it this way. But the thing is, I think, yeah, I don't know. It differs from person to person, but it is the actual thing where marketing is actually a very technical field. And it's actually, don't feel bad, guys, because I also discovered in my research that about 95% of marketers are doing it wrong. So that just makes, I don't know if it makes people feel better or makes them feel like, oh gosh, oh no, But I think, because let's face it, everybody, or not everybody, but if you think about the amount of people who have ad blocker, if ads were really creating value, people wouldn't have ad blocker. But ads annoy people because marketers are doing ads wrong, right? That's basically what it comes down to. And that is actually kind of like a great opportunity, because if we can figure out what is being done wrong, then you can figure out how to do it right, which is beneficial to everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of, and we actually have like a benefit from it, because the right way to do it is actually by telling a story. So we actually have like natural evolutionary benefits from just being writers, because we know what story is like and how it works and why it works. So yeah. All right. So that was like a tangent. So let's get back to the comments, because we've had a lot of comments again. So let's see. Okay, Doll says, I can't manage a YouTube and a blog. I'm blind. I used to have a blog, but no. I prefer to spend that time writing my actual stories. Yeah, absolutely. And that actually brings me to like another thing that I think people should realize about thing, because I've fallen for this nonsense as well. It's this whole idea of you have to be everywhere, people.
Yeah.
And actually, that's not true. You don't have to be everywhere. You actually need to choose maximum like 3 places that you really want to be at, and you have to focus on those places. And I'm saying maximum, it's probably better to even have fewer places than that, because you can really focus if you know where you're going. So I don't think, like, if you, like Doll says, she can't manage YouTube and a blog. If you like YouTube and you don't like blogging, then don't blog, because it's really going to also carry across that you don't like blogging if you don't like it. So there's no point. I don't think that's kind of where it makes a difference. It sounds weird, but don't do stuff you don't like, guys. Just find. We already know that marketing is a hellish experience, so we might as well make it fun for ourselves in every way we can. Just do what we are passionate about, and that's kind of a very important takeaway, I think, to take from this.
I think it's more authentic too, because if you're doing something that you don't like, it kind of comes through that, oh, I feel like I have to do this, but I don't want to do this. And people kind of can read that in whatever you're writing or whatever you're sharing. So it can kind of affect, I guess, how they view it tonally.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about it is as well, from a marketing standpoint, authenticity is really important, because this is the brand, people, not my books, not, I used to think, no, I have to focus. My book is the brand. But no, this girl over here is the Misha Garrick brand. Fantastic. But yeah, so, and you're the Magic brand. So it's just like, literally, I know.
Yeah.
But that's literally the thing. And people, the thing that is missing from most marketing is that people kind of make it really difficult for people who don't know a brand to actually connect with it at an emotional level. So that's where like being authentic really gets in under people's skins, because they're like, oh my goodness, this person is so different from everyone else. And so yeah, absolutely, authenticity is super important. This is like not to be underestimated at all. And it's yeah, but it's hard sometimes because you have to be yourself, but also like a stylized version of yourself. So it's kind of like a bit weird, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like you always have to say something not profound, but something that everybody kind of resonates with. So if you like make a comment or a blog post, it's like, okay, something that everybody else will connect with.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely, and that's kind of also where a storytelling kind of perspective starts becoming really handy, because stories are designed to resonate with people. So if you can incorporate that in your marketing, that just makes your marketing really awesome. And that's kind of, yeah, it's really like a sorry, someone is calling me. Just give me a second. I'm so rude, but this is now because it sounds rather urgent, but I will be back in less than a minute.
Okay. I don't know if I can see the comments, so I don't know what everyone else is saying or what's going on. Let's see. I'm gonna try to get to YouTube. But yeah, I don't really I don't do a lot of marketing either, so I don't have good advice like Misha.
All right, sorry, false alarm. My mom forgot that I'm on the video chat, so
Okay.
I ran away. I'm like, what? Where's the fire? And she's like, oh my gosh, I forgot about you guys. So anyway, all right. So about the, I heard like the tail end of what you said is like, I don't have good advice like Misha. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, my advice, it's coming again because I did a lot of like research, but you still have good opinions, which is why I love having you on, because it's at least having someone to talk to along with everyone's comments. So you guys, you do not understand how grateful I am to have you guys with me like every week. It's awesome. All right, so going through the comments again. Wait, where was I? Did I actually stop before I actually finished my point I was making? Because I have a vague suspicion that happened. Yeah, okay, so what I was saying about resonance, yeah.
Yeah.
Before I read the comments, okay, so let's finish that thought. Resonance, stories are designed to resonate. So if you can incorporate resonance into your like, for example, blog post, an easy way of doing that is if you are, even if it is something like writing a thing about your day, try to write it as a story. It sounds silly, it sounds stupid, but it just, like I said, it's you, but just a little stylized. But it just helps, because that is, yeah, like I said, stories are designed for resonance. So you might not necessarily resonate with everybody, but you will resonate with your target market if you do it right. So, all right. So now I can move on to the next point. Right. So, okay, Ava says, hi guys, I just popped in. How's things? Hey Ava, welcome to the chat, and very welcome, because I think you haven't stopped by before. So thanks so much for joining, and I hope you are finding some value from what we are talking about tonight. And then Ava says, I almost minored in marketing, but the courses were so tedious and dry, I had to bounce. I love aspects of it, but I never applied it to authorship. Yeah, that's actually kind of similar to my situation. I actually have a business degree, and part of it was marketing, but only like in as far as it connected to entrepreneurship. So naturally, like I said, I before I had this massive following, so I just thought, yeah, I have this down. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I really didn't, because if the courses that they are teaching you to market is that dry, then you probably have a problem with making things exciting for other people. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the way people market in general at the moment, but I think we should also talk a bit about when we talk about marketing. We, as a group here, have a tendency to talk about marketing as um, actually we are talking about communications. So communications is a very specific subfield of marketing. Marketing is also really dry in the sense that there are some very technical stuff about like product packaging, pricing, target consumers, where you're going to put it. Ugh. Anyway, so it's that is kind of also what we might want to just mention, is that right now when I'm talking marketing, I'm also just talking about the fun part of marketing, namely actually communicating with people. So but that's actually I am actually using the wrong term, because it's actually communications and not necessarily just marketing. But the communications is, like, I would say, probably in terms of actual actions that you as an author can take, probably the bulk of what you would do in terms of marketing, especially if you are a traditionally published author, because then most of your marketing decisions will have been made for you. And by this, I mean your book's cover, your book's like copy, where they're going to sell it, what price they're selling, all those kind of like really deeply technical stuff that's away from where we want to talk about. So, but again, when you are a writer, then, or self-publishing writer, then these things suddenly become very relevant. But I'm just going to assume we know how to price and we know how to get proper covers and stuff like that, because the fun bit is actually the bit of talking to people. Or is it fun? That's always the question. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I like finding the community, like me and you. But like you said, I think you said in the last video that
Mm,
when you actually looked at who your audience was, all the people that were following you, a lot of them were writers.
mm,
And so you weren't actually aiming towards the reader audience. It was more towards everybody that was more similar to you, which is kind
mm,
of how we market, is we market towards, well, hey, this is writing, other people that are doing writing, and you focus on that so much that you kind of forget, well, who are the actual people that are going to pick up the book and read it? I mean, you are going to have some writers that read your book as well, because writers are readers. But then, like you said, if I'm balancing my time between writing and reading, which one am I going to choose?
mm.
And I think for most writers, it's choosing that writing portion. But it depends. I did read your books.
Aw. Yeah, thank you so much for that, by the way. I really appreciate it. Yeah, but it's definitely that. It's that kind of, it's so easy for us to talk about writing because it's our natural passions.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about it and go into the technique and to go into the nitty-gritty details of it and stuff. But most people who are not writers, A, will not get it, and B, will not care. And then you kind of, if you're going to only focus on like writing stuff, you are running the risk of like alienating a vast majority of your potential readership. So yeah, it's not always the best strategy. And this I have found to my own detriment. So it's just so nice. Don't you guys love the fact that I'm so authentic that I'm sharing my past failures? So yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Um Ava says my degree is in English, so it was also tedious and dry. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Um, I think people go into English thinking that it's something else, but yeah, I actually got as far as doing A-level English literature, and it nearly killed me. So I'm like, yeah, when I had to like write in my choices for what I wanted to study. My brain's just, or I was just like, no, Misha says this is not the option for her because I actually grew up in a house. Random tangent. My grandmother is a writer, and that's kind of how I got into writing because I grew up watching her write and publish stuff and get it. So I actually got started really early, and my first stuff that I published were poems. And I think I've mentioned this to Maggie, but now we have so many new people, so I get to tell everybody again without sounding like I'm losing my mind. So anyway, yeah. So what happened was, so this kid who is already a published poet goes to an English class, and they're trying to tell me. So John Keats, who is dead and told nobody what he was actually intended, he actually intended this, and I'm like, no, rude, rude. This is unacceptable. Who are you to tell me what Keats was thinking? So I had a really massive. I don't even want to say love-hate relationship with English. I hated it because or no, I loved the part where I got to write my own stuff. I hated the part where people are like, well, I don't agree with your opinion about what this guy thought, because my opinion, while probably also drawn out of my ass, is a better opinion. And then I'm like, well, yeah. So I'm actually honestly of the opinion that English literature, as it is being studied like in university and at high school level especially, is a reason why so many people stop reading as soon as they leave school. Because they make it seem like a chore instead of actually making it enjoyable. And they make writing seem like a chore instead of something that people do just because they want to do it. Because like I'm not doing poetry because I want to share my opinion on something. If I wanted to do that, I do a live stream. I'm not going to do that in my poetry. So yeah, random tangent, but now we are getting back to the thing. But what maybe you want to share your opinion about it, Maggie. Did you enjoy English literature?
Well, okay. I like the classes that I had in high school and kind of going up through the years because even though sometimes when they suggested books, I feel like I don't know if I really want to read this, it actually opened my mind up to different genres of reading that I wouldn't have read before. So that was nice that, in some ways, like it forced me to pick up the book. But then once I started reading the book, I was like, okay, well, I really enjoy this. But like you
Yeah.
said, when we start talking about everyone's thoughts of why they wrote this and let's analyze this, but then they tell you that this is the one reason that it was actually written, I'm like,
Mm.
you can't know that. It's not actually stated. Okay, you can infer all you want, but unless the author actually wrote like some side note saying, and this is exactly how I wanted this to be written, and this was my intended purpose here, then it's not
Mm.
actually, something that you can assume. So I did get annoyed with that part, but for the most part, I think I did enjoy English because, like you said, that was the time when I got to write and I enjoyed writing. But I know,
Mm.
like, for a lot of my classmates, of course, they were thinking, ugh, why do I have to write? Here's another essay. How much can I get by without having to write too much? Or what is it? Those tricks of making the period bigger so there's more space, or changing the spacing so it takes up more of the page. So they like try to get away with doing as less, the
Yeah.
least amount of writing that they could. Um, but yeah, it's sad that people like they start young with hating writing and hating reading,
Mm.
which is not good. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just laughing because people hated me in English when it came to the writing part because I was just, ma'am, are you sure we should only write 100-word essay? You want this to be a fictional story, so I need at least 3,000 words, and they're like, no. So yeah, I was horrible. I always argued upwards, and people thought they wanted to kick my ass about it, but like, yeah. This is, how do you tell a proper story in 100 words? This is still something that my brain just being like from a very young age. I started writing when I was like 13, and even then my brain was like, let's write a book. And then instead of just saying let's write a book, no, this story is so big it has to be a series. So my brain going into the opposite direction of trying to use as few words as possible to tell the story No, it does not. It does not compute that at all. So I completely understand what you're saying. Like other kids are doing this, and you're like, yeah, but yeah. So
Yeah.
random, but I think most of us are that kid in class. Most people I think find their love of writing during English, probably. But
Yeah.
funny about that. So all right. So let me just see. We are probably going to run because yeah. Sorry, I'm just seeing this comment from Ava as well, but back to communications. So yeah, we are. Let me just quickly see what she said about it before, or what everybody said, because I saw Doll had something relevant to what we were talking before we got onto the sentence. So let's jump back to it in a little bit, but let me just see. So Doll says she writes poems as well, and that they all do make it seem like a chore instead of being enjoyable. Yeah, it's a big pity. I think I agree that yeah, you have to make something about it to make it academic, but they're too rigorous. I feel about it. Like I can say I love a lot of my books that I read in literature, and like you said, a lot of the stuff I read in literature are things that I would never have picked up on my own, and I actually loved them. So that's awesome. That part of it I love, but I feel like there should be space for people to discuss what something means to them instead of just saying, well, this is what it meant to the author. Because for me, my kind of belief about writing is that that book, it belongs to you as the author for as long as you're writing it. But the moment you let it out, you're kind of saying, well, everybody is now kind of, the rights of the book and the copyright of the book is still mine, but the essence of it and, whether or not you love the characters and what you make of it and what you find meaning about in it belongs to the audience. And doing the whole, well, this guy thought this, and anyone else saying anything else is wrong, just takes it all away, and that I don't like it. Anyway, so Ava says, I love analyzing motives of an author, but I think it is more interesting to see how different readers view these motives. Okay, yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Just as we said, so I'm not going to repeat that again.
Yeah, but I agree. It's just everyone reads something differently, so
Yeah. I think I had to write 5 different papers on Chaucer and his motives. Barf. I agree. That is like mine was Keats. That's why, and even now, and not just Keats, Endymion, which if you guys don't know, that is like a novel in poetry form. And everybody else nowadays, there's a new thing where people start loving poetry novels. But this kid, having gone through Keats for literature, never again. Never. And I love poetry, but just that, like, it just felt like he started doing this whole, like, oh gosh, what rhymes with bark? Lark. Okay, now I have to write, because how many rhymes can you come up with? And like, I can't even remember AB form, or whatever it was,
yeah.
for 20,000 words. Come on, you just, Anyway, so one day I will get back from my tangent, I promise. So, fifth grade teacher was the first person to let me know I could write, even though no one saw it as a thing to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was, like I said, my first person who told me that I could write was my gran. But I've also had but I've had more than one teacher who really said, listen, you have a very good way of writing, so you should really make a thing of this. And that was, and the funny thing is actually my A-level literature teacher was one of the first guys who's like, listen, the day you publish, you actually have to let me know. So the day I sold my book to a publishing deal, I actually wrote him an email like, yeah, I did it. So
Yeah.
but he was actually also, and this is a secret to all the kids who happen to watch this, and I will have to change my tag so that they find this video. If you want to pass your English literature and you don't agree with what the teacher is saying, just bullshit. That is how I got through. I did really well with my literature because I just started thinking, what does this guy want me to tell him? And it just works wonders. But that's just like the big secret to passing A-level English. So
Really a lot of classes though, to be honest. I mean, if you have to write like a history paper or something, if you know what they're bent, where they're leaning, when you follow what they actually like to read, then they're gonna be like, oh, let me give a higher grade. I agree with this. it's unfortunately a bias that a lot of people have towards whatever they read.
Yeah, and that's actually, I mean, that's a part of the whole study of literature I don't like, is there's actually a lot of bias in it, and not skewed towards me, and definitely not skewed towards you. So, I'm not going to go into that too much, but yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of just get annoyed with it. So skip. Right. So, and now, as Ava said, back to communications. So, oh, before I do it, I have to. We call it bullshitting, but it's actually analysis. Good point. Point granted. Okay, so, and author Amber Ashcroft said,
Oh. No. Yeah, I think Misha might be gone. I was trying to figure out whether or not it was actually my Wi-Fi going out again or if it was her. But it does look like she's not actually on the stream anymore. Maybe she might have had a poor connection or something happened. I know a couple weeks ago there was a lot of wind and a storm that kind of, she went out like towards the end of our stream. So hopefully she'll come back in the next few minutes. Let's see. Is there anything anyone wants to talk about? So I know we were kind of trying to go back to communications, focusing on when we're presenting information to everyone, marketing. Let's see. So I'm trying to just look at the YouTube chat since I don't have Misha to explain everything. Yeah, so Misha said her computer froze. So hopefully that'll actually work itself out. Okay. Let's see. Well, I don't know. I was a psych major, so not exactly communications or focusing on that, but it is focused on people and interactions and studying people. So more of like an observer than the actual getting to the interaction part. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so Misha's trying to get back on. Eva Wright says, do any of you maintain websites for your brand? And I don't have a website, but I do have a blog, so I do maintain that. And I think I kind of mentioned a little earlier, but I post about once a week on Tuesdays. And so that that's my main marketing. And when I talk about things that I'm writing or just different life topics. Dal said I study psychology too. Oh, cool. Okay, so yes, you understand analyzing people and understanding human interactions. I think I was actually talking to a friend about that the other day. We were talking, why do people do what they do? What kind of, what's the reason behind it? You know, is there some experience that they had in the past that's motivating their behavior now, or do they actually, like, is this a personality quirk or something that's kind of motivating? So I don't know if that drives content of why people focus on things, but oh look, Misha's back. Okay, woo. That's
thank
good.
heavens I have two computers with me, because that was just like very awkward. It just froze solid on me. And I'm just really want to say thank you so much to StreamYard for not just like dumping me completely out of the live stream at all, because that happens like where it always happens with Hangouts on air. So that sucks. But yeah. All right. So let me just. Where were we? All right. So what did I miss while I was gone? So just catch me up, Maggie.
Well, first I was trying to figure out whether it was on your end or my end, whether or not, who was disconnected. And then once we all figured out that it was you that had kind of gotten off, we started talking about a little bit about communications, and then I mentioned that I studied psychology, so we talked about that. That's about it.
Cool. All right. Now I'm caught up. All right. So yeah. All right. So what I was going to say to Amber when she asked what did she miss, we were going off on a tangent about English literature and why we mostly think it sucks. But anyway, so that was basically what we were talking about. But now we are back to communication. So let me just see. There was a comment from Dal earlier saying, I'm seeking traditional publishing because I can't afford self-pub, but I'm terrified of their awful strategies. So I'm in a dilemma. So yeah, that is, the thing is, um, I understand what you're saying about not being able to afford self-pub. I was in the same boat, and in a lot of ways, I'm still in the same boat. So, but the thing is, the handy thing is about this at least is that whether or not you self-publish or not, you're going to end up having to do marketing yourself, because trade publishing really doesn't do much for people unless you're like, what is it, Sandra Brown or J.K. Rowling or someone like that. So, oh well.
I mean, you could be one of those people, but yeah, you
Yeah.
never know.
I think the thing is, I mean, just getting the marketing budget that those guys get, just getting that before you publish is already like winning the lottery. And getting published in the first place is kind of like winning the lottery. So it's like not playing the odds there. So,
I guess it depends if you're seeking like a small publishing house or a large one, because it's definitely, if you're a new writer, larger ones are harder to kind of get your foot in the door, and so you really have to make sure that what you're marketing towards them is something that the company usually publishes, or that they really, or that hopefully you've got a contact, because honestly, that's like how most people get things done these days, is they know somebody who knows somebody, and then that's how it kind of cycles into something. So yeah, like you said, it's hard to actually become someone big when you start out, where it's like only your small community of people know you. So how do you actually market to like the world at large?
yeah, no, that's definitely a thing. It's so convoluted, really, and I think for me, that's kind of also why I ended up going into self-publishing, because the odds of getting into a trade publisher for me was just really not looking good. And I was with a small publisher, but I think we had that talk about how that went spectacularly wrong. And just mathematically speaking, it just doesn't make sense for me. But I can understand where Doll is coming from, because even when I made this decision to self-publish, it was kind of terrifying. So yeah, I'm not going to say that anybody is wrong for choosing any specific kind of publishing, because there are pros and cons to both if we can get there. So, but yeah. All right, so back to communication. All right.
Off that for a little bit.
Yeah, but this is actually going on really long, and it's also partly because, like Ava said, she distracts us, and I saw the message, so let me put it up there, because he she admitted it, so we have it in writing that she admitted that it's her fault. No, but seriously, so it's my own fault, because it's like a pet peeve of mine. But yeah, but yeah. So communication. So maybe we should maybe talk about it in more detail again next week. Oh crap! I wanted to mention that I forgot about it. Next week, we might have to change. I already said I hate changing the time, but we might have to change to another day. So we'll just have to discuss when that works for you, just by the way,
Okay.
because yeah, it's a church thing that I have to go help with, and I have no idea how long it's going to take, and it looks like an all day thing. So I don't want to stress and miss my own.
Actually, that probably works out for me as well because I'm looking at my next week and I actually will be working in the morning, so I won't have
Okay.
the time.
All right. No, so we yeah, it's a really annoying thing, but if it works out for you, then perfect. So we'll talk about it and we'll let everybody know. I'll make sure to schedule a few days ahead so that everybody who is interested in catching up knows where and when it's happening. And of course, if you can't make the live stream and you're finding this video interesting at any level, then maybe it's a good idea to just follow up with watching back playback after we've gone live. So, all right, so I think we can just talk a little bit more before we go on because we do still want to get some writing done, I think. So, as much as I love procrastinating, but yeah, so let's see. Ava asked, do any of you maintain websites for your brand? No. Like, actually, I'm supposed to. I have everything ready to launch my website, but again, it has to do with my spectacular inability to actually apply my own advice to my own marketing. So, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm hoping to get it up this month. So, but it's just that at this stage where I am with my marketing plan, is I have my brand figured out. I know exactly what I want to do. I know exactly what I'm aiming for. And I even have like a very good idea of what I'm going to be using to get there. But it's just sitting down now is for me to sit down and figure out the nitty gritty of exactly what needs to go into everything to make it work optimally. And I haven't really been able to do that. So that is what my plan is, to sort that out this month, not later, not this month. I have to figure it out. But yeah, so but the website will definitely be a big part of my brand. So, Maggie, did you have a website?
I kind of answered that one earlier when you were gone, so.
Oh, okay. So you didn't tell me.
Sorry. I can't put it up on the screen, so.
Doll says, I like your streams too. I'll be joining if my schedule fits. Yay! I'm glad. I'm so glad. I also always like when people like my streams because I know I'm a bit out there sometimes. So, but yeah. So if you guys like it, that's also awesome. Right. So communications. I think the big thing for me is that the big takeaway for this is I think, guys, if you are really seriously thinking about marketing, maybe start looking up stuff about communications, specifically in terms of branding and also in terms of actually applying it. And then just like the basic principles of it, because it sounds really tedious, I know, but the big thing about it is that, and that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier as well, is that you need to know the principles of what it is, and it's a reasonably technical thing that you're doing, because then you can bend and break and adapt and whatever and apply. And it's just that the way that I feel like we're doing marketing at the moment is kind of the reason why I can barely get into my I want to say tweet deck, but get into my Twitter account at the moment, because I can't open my Twitter without being like flooded with buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, my book, my book, my book, my book, my book. And it's just like, yeah, there has to be a way to kind of cut through all that crap. So yeah, it's annoying. So I'm just kind of saying that a lot of the advice. I'm not trying to be like, you all have to stop following everybody else's advice and start following my advice, because like I have to mention, I don't follow my own advice, so that would be rather hypocritical. But seriously, guys, there's a lot of bad advice out there, and I know this because I followed that bad advice myself for almost a decade, and that didn't help me. Every time that something worked out in my marketing that actually helped me was when I did not follow that advice and did my own thing. So just like kind of a very interesting thing to consider is that maybe people sharing their marketing advice don't always have our best interests at heart. So, and they're usually sharing their advice because they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm not, by the way, buy my book. So I'm not doing that. But like,
Yeah, I wonder, like, if you have someone else that also helps to kind of advertise or validate your marketing claims, maybe that helps a little as well. Like,
mm,
if, say, you do just end up having like a lot of writers kind of following you, but if you manage to convince them that your book is something good, that they should promote as well, then they can kind of promote to their, maybe they only have a few followers or an audience, that's small, but they can promote to their audience, and then you promote their book to your audience, and kind of the vice versa thing, so that it's like we share the community. But that way, so you don't have it so much on yourself. It's kind of, I guess, maybe a little bit quality, or what people's opinions are of the quality of your book, and saying, well, I think this is worth someone's time. You should buy Misha Gurek's book because, well, one, she's working on the third one, and we're really waiting for that to come out. Um, but for like other reasons as well, that she's got this really great characters, and then there's some relationship issues with these characters that we're trying to figure out as well. So like if you have someone else that kind of explains it and says, well, this is really good, you should actually pay attention to it and you should get it because I think it's worth the read, then it helps your marketing as well, because then it's not just you saying, buy a book, buy a book, buy a book.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's a very good point that you're raising. That the big secret, I think, and it's not that I'm saying, well, this is how you do it, because it's still something I'm figuring out for myself. But I feel like the big secret is that you really want to figure out like a way to get sorry, that's my brother. He brought me hot chocolate and that's completely distracting me now. Right, so anyway, the big secret is to actually find core readers who are willing to tell people buy the book, because I don't, and not that I'm saying you guys are useless to me in terms of like sharing that you like the book, but unless people know you as an avid reader,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably going to go, because the thing is that, again, 10 years of doing this kind of thing, people have kind of caught on to this thing of, oh, they're exchanging reviews, oh, there's something going, there's a quid pro quo going on there that we don't quite know, that kind of, so there's kind of that aspect to it as well that sucks, because, you know, writers are readers, and because we have that in common, you kind of get people who write who are more willing to help you get stuff done. But I think in terms of impact, I think finding readers who are willing to tell other people, listen, you've got to read this book. And that's kind of where I want to say, guys, if you're doing young adult, especially if you're self-published and you're doing young adult, get onto Wattpad. I know, people are going to not agree with me because it's a lot of work, but it is so worth it. I'm not kidding. I got my first book. Once I got a few people interested, I got like, I want to say 5,000 reads, like within the first 6 months or something, which was enough to get people to think that they should feature it. And once they featured it, that book went to over 100,000 words, 100,000 reads. And from there, those guys, I just put a little note at the end of the book saying, listen, I know that you guys are probably not going to buy the book, even though it's available here, here, and here. But please, if you want to help the book and you don't have money to help, just tell your friends to read the book. And since then, I've more than doubled. I'm almost at triple that amount of reads now. And that's without being featured because I haven't been featured in I think, over 2 years. So it's just got a life of its own. And the thing is, those guys are mostly readers and not so much writers. So you've got your freaking target market right there. So young adult guys, please listen to me. This is very important. And the thing is that I'm really excited about Wattpad is they're starting to monetize for writers. So I'm definitely going to be trying to get into that program because if the monetization thing works, especially I've got it made with that. So if that works out, that is actually like a brilliant thing for writers because again, easy discoverability with your target market, and they are there because they want to read your book, not because you have to still try to convince them to try it. So yeah, just a random tangent slash observation of from my own experience that really did help a lot, and it did sell my books as well. I haven't sold a lot of books because again it's for free, so nobody's all that interested in paying for it. But the fun thing is when the next book comes out, I'm like, well, sorry guys, I might one day publish this book on Wattpad, but for now, so something to consider. But yeah, all right. So let's see what the comments because I just want to say you guys have been an awesome crowd. I really love how much comments are coming in because it's really like fun to talk with people as they're interacting with us. So let's see. Doll said Twitter is fun as long as you tweet something other than buy my book. Yeah, I agree. Although it's not as fun as it used to be. Um, Mostly because of politics. So I'm just going to gloss right over that and ask Maggie if she enjoys Twitter. Do you enjoy Twitter, Maggie?
I don't actually have Twitter, so not at all.
Cool. Yes.
I mean, I just got an Instagram maybe about a month ago. So, I'm very new to the social media in that sense because I don't use it regularly. So that's why also marketing is kind of like a struggle for me because I just I don't like the social platforms that much. But Instagram's all right so far.
Cool. I also like Instagram because I really like taking pictures. So
Yeah.
that's definitely that and YouTube and a blog.
Yeah.
Probably might stretch to do Twitter again. Those will be my main outlets for my marketing stuff or communication stuff. But I don't like Facebook. Right, so let's see. Eva says before I found AuthorTube, the only place I saw indie authors were at cons, Comic Con, gaming cons, etc. Yeah, it's kind of the same for me in terms of I interacted with a lot of writers for many years because of the fact that I was blogging. So that definitely helped, but I didn't physically see them like I am now. And that's kind of where I'm really falling in love with YouTube because I love actually being able to feel like I'm talking to you guys, even if it's in comments or whatever, like as I'm doing, not necessarily just being on the stream myself, but just responding to streams and other videos and stuff like that. It just feels more personal and direct. I like it a lot. Ava says, I don't use Twitter, so I'm not buying any books based off of tweets or influences on there. Yeah, my honest thing is that basically by 2014, my whole social networking thing imploded. And it's a long, drawn out story as to why, but I used to be on Twitter constantly and I'm struggling to get back to it just because of mainly the level of negativity I find on there, and it's politics mainly. And the worst is, it's not even my politics. So it's not even like I can say, listen, you all just have to shut up and listen to me because they're just like, well, who are you? Where are you from? I'm like, well, South Africa.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, if I post something, I always want to try to make sure it's got some kind of positive at least something positive in there, because there's just so much negativity that's like, I don't really want to add to that. And I don't think people want to read that. So, I won't post about things that I don't like, or anything like too negative. If it's talking about like a struggle or challenges with a character, I always try to talk about like the good things in that as well, so it's not just focusing on the bad, because I think we are just saturated with so much negativity that like it gets depressing. That's why like a lot of people talk about how if you spend a lot of time on social media, you end up kind of having that depressed mood a lot more, just because of what you see on there. I mean, it does kind of influence, I don't know, the brain chemistry, but also just what you think about.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I am open about this. So if you guys, I think mainly, everybody's watching still, but I'm seeing mainly Eva and Dol commenting. And you are both new, so you probably missed the part where I've mentioned this before, and that is that I suffer from anxiety. Or I don't really suffer from it. It's just a thing. It is what it is my kind of point of view. I'm not letting it define me, but it is definitely something that I have to consider every time I go onto Twitter, because even if it's just to block the person, that guy, that like person on your feed, and you have to block him, or you have to delete him, or you have to whatever to get him off your feed. Just having read that freaking thing, that impacts me already. It's not, so even then, that kind of negativity just doesn't work for me, and that's kind of where I really don't like Twitter at the moment. And I've heard that it's actually really negative. So, especially like from other people since been off there. And so I'm still debating whether I really want to spend time on Twitter, because it just feels really yeah, bad. Not healthy. So I'm working actually, and that's actually something that relates to something else that Dol said, which I'm just going to throw up here. I'm still getting used to the fact that I can actually share the comments, which is why I'm still just sometimes reading without putting it on the screen. But what Dol says about the unfollow follow thing that some authors do is not only rude but also amateur. I agree, but I'm actually of the opinion with regard to Twitter that you shouldn't follow back at all, which is probably, when I'm saying at all, I mean unless you know the person and you have an established relationship with said person. Don't follow back, because you don't know what crap they're going to throw onto your feed. So that's actually one of those things that I learned I was doing wrong. There is a way to actually follow people without having them actually on your feed, and that's through lists. And I actually suggest doing that instead, because if you have a list, for example, I have a list that says writers, journalists, editors, industry, that kind of thing, and then also a probationary list, so people who spam my account and who are rude and stuff, I put them on probation, and then I watch them for a little bit. But the thing is, then I can mentally prepare myself before going into that list for, okay, there's going to be bad stuff here. So then I kind of know when I want to take it off. So that is actually what I've been doing. But it's a massive job, because I was following over 5,000 people, so I'm systematically unfollowing, and many people, despite the fact that I explained that I didn't stop really keeping track of what they're saying. A lot of people are unfollowing me because of it, but I'm just thinking in the long term, it's just a better way to do this, because I really cannot handle my Twitter feed as it was. It was just,
Yeah. I mean, if they're unfollowing you because you're unfollowing them, then I think that just shows that they weren't as invested in what you're posting. Because otherwise, they'd be like, okay, I still want to see this content, even though she's not following me. So yeah, I don't know, it is a mess sometimes on there, which is why sometimes I just think about not doing it at all and just focusing on writing. But I feel like I owe it to my publishers to actually market a little bit.
yeah, it's just, for me with that is that I think, and that's also something that I realized that I was doing wrong. And that's kind of where I'm really cynical about numbers these days, because we have such a thing about get 1 million followers. Oh, tangent. I just want to say a super thank you to everyone who followed me because I'm finally at 50 people on YouTube. So okay, but anyway, so back to regular programming. So I'm actually, as much as I'm grateful for all of you, and I just wanted to say that because it just feels really rude when I just hit 50 people today, but I'm not about the follower numbers at all. Um, because again, 10,000 people selling 12 books, I kind of learned the hard way that follower numbers actually does not matter, especially if you have a writer based network, because most people who are going to follow you are following you for the follow back. And that means that they have no interest in interacting with you, building a relationship with you, supporting you, helping you, any, whatever. So, like you said, so if they unfollow me the moment I unfollow them, it's kind of a very clear sign that they don't even know what the heck I'm doing. Where I'm hoping that the people I really care about, who I follow and who I have had to unfollow because I have a lot of people I do care about, so I want to follow them back again later, but I can't keep them in my follow count because then it's just really hard to find the guys I want to unfollow. So it's a real technical annoying thing, but yeah. So I have to let them know. Listen, sorry, don't feel bad that I'm unfollowing you. I am actually still keeping track, but the rest of them, I'm just kind of like, well, if you want to unfollow me, okay,
Yeah,
because I don't
I
care.
mean,
I
those
don't
are
know.
right.
Yeah, I don't care who you are because 10 years we've been following each other, and you never wrote me anything. You never, and I never wrote you anything. So it's not like it's personal. I'm not taking it personal that people didn't get in touch with me. But that's the thing. There's no relationship. So why would, what's the point? So that's kind of where I'm really changing my focus in communications. And I know a lot of people are going to think I'm insane, and I maybe am, but I would rather have a following of like 1,000 people, but most of them are passionate about my book, than a following of 1,000,000 people and 1,000 of them are passionate about my book.
Yeah.
And the reason why, and this is really weird, I know, but the thing is, it's about the relationship. Because I can have a relationship with people where I know they all love what I'm doing, or where I love what they're doing, or whatever. It's not necessary. I'm not making this, it's not like all about me, but like, um, you know, it's literally, it's about, if you have 1,000,000 followers and you have a massive amount of people following your like blogs or whatever, finding the people that you care about and who care about you just becomes that much harder.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really a massive thing to even if people unfollow me because I whatever, but like for me, it's about finding that core, and then beyond that core, maybe that's going to start growing. But just finding my core group, and I'm not talking about demographics or anything about that because I think my stories are a bit more universal, but it's just those people who are real fans about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Those are the guys I'm aiming to try and reach, because um yeah, that's just basically, if I don't reach them, then why am I communicating? Because they should be my first point of reference for when I'm communicating. So yeah. You wanted to say something, Maggie?
No, I'm good.
I'm talking a lot. All right, so I'm going to go through these comments and try to get to like the bottom of it, and then I think we should at least do one or two sprints because we've been going on for a long time. And
Yeah, if we can get to it kind of quickly. I don't know.
all right, let's see. So Ava says, I hear an indie author. Oh, sorry, wrong one. I hear an indie author's title premise, and it sounds like I may like it. Step one, Goodreads reviews. If there's more than one saying it's unedited or poorly written, I don't try it. Not that you guys care, but I'm a book purchaser, so enjoy that peep in my head, laugh it out. Okay, so yeah, no, it's definitely, Goodreads reviews are definitely starting to get like more of a thing, but I have had, and I'm not going to name names. No, you know what? But I have had. I have to say, I have had another author in my community who was in my in my network half-ass reading through my book because nobody else picked up on this, despite the fact that I had like 20 people reading the book before it was published and then other reviewers. She went and gave me a did not finish review with a half-ass comment as to why, and she basically just torpedoed that book. And it's 5 years and I'm still pissed about it. So I'm trying to be graceful and I don't want you guys to go find it or anything, so please no. But just to say that reviews,
I
I'm
can't trust all of them.
no, because you have really vindictive bitches in your like network who will
And
they
even
will
when
act.
they publish books, like, sorry, just one thing, Barnes and Noble or, like one of those other stores, um, even those books that are published and have thousands of people reading them, I still find grammatical inaccuracies or punctuation errors because it's like everybody reads the book so many times that all of a sudden everyone glazes over. And then even the readers will glaze over and not read it because they're enjoying the story so much that their mind fills in like the blank or what's supposed to be correct there. So you'll still have these like things pop up, and then that one person, of course, will find it and comment on it and say, well, they didn't look too closely at this. It's like you have professors or people that publish actual papers, like scientific papers, and it's like it seems like they don't know how to write because they have like those inaccuracies. So it's just sometimes I'm like, when this one comment comes in, it's like, okay, are they just noting nitpicking, or is there actually a serious issue? Because if it's like maybe once, okay, that's different than if it happens like every page.
Yeah, it's exactly, and I just want to mention, so with regards to my bad review, I am not bitter. I just have to say I'm kind of bitter in the sense that I had a relationship with this person and she posted that review instead of sending me an email. And that was kind of where this is coming from. So I just want to clarify that right out of the gate. And to this day I haven't spoken to her because I just like I'm not going directly after her because I don't want to be that guy who responds to reviews and like, because you get people who do that and they're like nasty and whatever. I'm not doing that. And that's not why I mention it. I'm just mentioning that oftentimes I take bad reviews with a grain of salt because, there might be something behind it. And I still don't know what the frick that person was thinking, but just to point out, so I'm a little bitter, but it's not about the bad review. She's entitled to her opinion. But if she had a problem with it, she should have just sent me a mail saying, "Listen, I know I volunteered to review this, but I cannot review this because, And she apparently didn't care enough about our relationship to do that. So, anyway, but that's kind of
Another
just
side tangent.
I have had other bad reviews, and I'm fine with them because yeah, everybody does that. But it's yeah, I just because I know, especially social networking stuff, you get people who like do sock puppet accounts where they make special accounts just so that they can go target writers because they don't agree about something the writer did. There's some crazy crap going on in reviews sometimes. So I do go for reviews. But the interesting thing for me that I think is kind of mad, like from my side, is that I go for reviews after I've watched the thing. So I'll make my own opinion and then I'll be like, I wonder if someone else shares this opinion. And then I'll read the reviews to see what they think about it.
Yeah.
But I'm actually just not someone who has reviews as an actual motivation for whether or not I should buy a book. For for the reason I mentioned. So
Oh well.
yeah. Long story. Let's see. Doll says, poorly edited is the reason why I can't do self-publishing, blindness, and I can't afford an editor. Yeah. Editors are expensive. And the thing is that I have to say, I do edit most of my own work, but I do it with a very, 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 I cannot stress this enough, very rigid structure of critique partners and my own very high standards involved. So it's not that, but yeah, it's a very big consideration because we're talking about like my year's salary to edit one book, and I cannot. I've just, it's a business, and I cannot put out that much of an investment in a book when I don't know when it's going to make it back. So for me, I've put time into learning how to do it properly. So I'm confident that I'm doing well enough. But it's just, I just realized saying this, I possibly painted like a target on my back for people to say, oh, she edits her own book. She doesn't do really well, does she? But the thing is, I think that if you self-publish, you should actually know how to edit your own books, not necessarily because you shouldn't hire editors, but
It
a
saves
lot of
time in
people,
the process.
yeah, the thing is, they rely on editors, and then especially when it comes to like structural and content edits, they didn't pay for an editor because those tend to be rather expensive and very involved. So I regularly find books that, but it's not, and I also have to mention, not just self-publishers, it's actually everybody. I find serious structural issues in most books that I read. And it's not to say that I'm the only one who knows what she's doing. It's not that. It's like I'm just pointing out that people neglect structural editing, and it's actually something you should be able to do for yourself. So if there's something you have to learn for yourself, that's definitely it. You're not going to get around it because boy, is that expensive. That is like, I get like chills just thinking about it. But yeah, so I understand. I completely have sympathy. It's just I've kind of, when I went into the self-publishing thing, I realized, well, you're going to have to do most of it yourself because heaven knows you're not going to be able to pay for it.
No,
So
that's really expensive. I looked at that a little while ago and I was like, wow, no, totally doing this myself and with my writing buddies so they give me critiques for free because I also critique their work. So, it kind of helps that cycle at least a little because, gosh, it's expensive. I do not have the money. I'm not famous enough to pay for that.
yeah, no, it's definitely, and the thing is that people have this thing of saying, well, you have to pay for an editor, even if it's just for some of this stuff. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, I can get behind that, except for the part where if you can't pay an editor for every single stage of your edits, you still have to fill in the gaps and do the rest yourself, love. It's not something you're going to avoid. And that is something that really annoys me as a freelance editor because they don't want to pay me for the structural stuff. But then they hire me to proofread because they think that I'm going to polish a turd. And it sounds horrible to say it that way, but like if you don't fix your structural stuff, your story is not actually in a shape to actually be publishable, even if I've proofread it. And I'm a good proofreader because, like I mentioned, perfectionist. But it's, yeah, it's
Yeah.
so, it gets so
All right,
annoying.
let's move on to the next thing because like
Yeah.
we're spending so much time on that.
Yeah, but that's a marketing thing as well. It's just like about the editing stuff, but it's really kind of worth considering is
Yeah.
that sometimes you're still going to have to learn how to edit regardless. I'm in a fortunate situation where with everything I've been through, I've been able to teach myself most of it in the end. So yeah, I leave it up to people to decide whether or not I'm good at it. So
There you go.
I'm trying to be charming. Okay,
Oh,
so anyway.
Ava, because one of the last comments came up. Ava has to go, so thanks for joining us.
Yeah, sorry, Ava. Sorry we didn't get to actual writing before you had to leave. But yeah, so if you come back, then you'll see like if I respond to more comments from you. So
Yeah, whether or not we actually get productive.
yeah, we really backed up. So okay, let's see. Going quick again. Now I have to get back to where I was. Okay, so yeah, Eva says I almost started blogging about horrible books. Decided that's probably too heartbreaking. Yeah, and actually it sounds horrible, but it's possibly not the best look if you're trying to like win people over, to be really critical of other people. So especially if you're going to name names and be specific. So probably a good tool to avoid that. Dahl says, I'm very well aware of my limitations. I want my stories to be good and enjoyable. So I have to do traditional. I don't truly have a voice. Oh, a choice. Sorry. Yeah, it's a difficult situation. I think, especially for you and what you require, it is definitely. I can understand why you would want to do traditional, but even so, I think how to say this in a nice way. It's a good idea to still try to see if you can figure out some of the stuff that you can do for yourself, because I don't want to be like really negative about it, but traditional publishing edits are no longer what they used to be. So there is going to be an aspect of it that you will not be able to avoid editing yourself. So
A
I
lot
really
on the writer for sure.
yeah, they put more and more on the writer, so it's not to discourage you or anything, but it is. I really hope that you can figure out ways around this and to get beyond that, and I'm sure you can, because you're awesome. Really, you are awesome. But just yeah, just consider that and start thinking while you have time, because you're still drafting, I assume. So while you still have time to figure this out, do put in at least some thought into how to make it work. All right. I'm not going to keep preaching about it because yeah, but anyway.
Okay.
Um, let's see. Da-da, da-da-da-da. Okay. I'm just going to start skipping over some of these comments because I think we've covered quite a bit of it already.
Yeah.
Uh, Ava says, I haven't finished an indie book yet. They haven't been readable due to a lack of editing. I'm not just saying the story was bad. I never got that far. Yeah, it's a pity. I think but most that there's a core group, I want to say, of self-publishing writers that even if they edit their own work, they're aware enough of the requirements of the kind of standards they need to publish at, that you don't have to worry about that kind of problem about not having a readable book from them. But yeah, the secret is finding those guys, and that can be quite like really difficult. But it's not. Yeah, I tried out a lot, and because I do try to support indie publishers and so on, but I do understand because there are a lot of guys who are like, my first draft is perfect. I'm just going to pay for formatting and a cover.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's just not going to work out. So,
Gosh, like
um,
I see all the errors and I'm like, I don't want to tell people because I don't think it's good enough. So yeah, I don't know. I think it really does, it depends on the writer, what
yeah,
the book is and stuff. So
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's just, and again, that might also be why I am not a book reviewer, because I'm deeply, deeply, deeply blunt, and yeah. So it is like for me as well. I'm like, yeah, I can't do this because also because I've been writing for so long and I have a very big focus in the way that I write. I can actually tell within like the first 10 pages of a book that this book is going to have structural problems. So, um, and that sucks because I really struggle to get into books because my brain is like constantly, okay, this is tick, this is okay, this is here, this is here, this is here, this is here. That's not, oh, this is a problem, this is not here. Oh goodness. And then my brain, so I actually don't get sucked into books. And in a lot of ways, I think the problem is me because of the fact that I'm so perfectionistic about my own books. And when I read other people's books, I'm as perfectionistic. And it's actually really wrong of me. And I'm just going to say it because when I was just a reader and just like writing for fun, I didn't care. There's books now that I loved when I was a kid that I just can't tolerate now for the same, like for that, like, oh my gosh, what was this author thinking? So, um, yeah, I think a lot of why I don't like certain books has to do with the fact that I'm writing and editing so much. And it's not necessarily because you shouldn't really go into a book, I feel, when you're reading with a writer brain, and it's really difficult to turn it off. So, all
yeah.
right. Let's see. Um,
Um,
I think
Ava,
most of it we either covered or it was something that just kind of related to things we talked about. Do you think there's any more comments that I don't know?
mm, yeah, just a thing that Ava said about the communicate, like with our communications topic that I thought was interesting. I can list also tubers with lots of hate who still have large followings because they talk to who they want to talk to and don't fret about the rest. It's working, like it or not. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and in a sense, I think people should actually learn from that because it's kind of how we all should do it. Not to say that we should just like segment things into little bits and pieces, but I do think that we should focus on the people who are really our focus. And if someone else doesn't like your book, then oh, screw them because they're not your target market. So why bother with them? Why try to convince them? Why try to get them into your circle? They're just going to rain on your parade. So that's kind of the way I think of it. But then again, you kind of get that thing about like a positivity loop and not screwing up because you didn't really have the right perspective. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
Yeah. Also, I don't know. Sometimes I think that the most opinionated people are the ones that actually respond and comment on the internet. So you're going to get like the extremes.
Mm.
In general, I'm just finding the extremes are usually the ones, the people that have the negative stuff that they want to talk about. So they just get so excited about that. And so that's when you get lots of responses, is because everybody wants to talk about what they don't like. And
Yeah.
that was kind of sad. And that's another one of those marketing media things that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's a yeah. I think just like that, people have this thing where hmm, it again. I think it has to do with this whole literature thing again, but especially like as a young adult genre writer, not me being young adult because well, I'm 30 years young, but like I'm no longer like a teenager, but I still write that genre, and people just love to tell people of my genre how inferior we are to literature. And then you're like, well, but am I really that inferior? Because when I sold 12 books, I possibly outsold like 50% of the literature people out there. So how inferior, it's not, I'm not trying to be like bragging or whatever, but it's just like my point about it is that people carry on about certain things are more superior to other things, but it's actually just based on what their personal preferences are.
Yeah.
And so it's not really valid. It's just, um, and a lot of them are trolls. And that's like what you said. They're anonymous, they're on social media, and they have nothing better to do with their time than to actually just be mean. And that kind of, and especially if you start, I think when you start getting big followings, that's kind of where they start congregating because they're agitating for a fight. Because that's, I don't know, they're sad anyway. But like, it's something to consider. It's just like that we kind of have this thing about, oh, we don't like what this person is doing, but gosh, their people still follow them. And then I'm like, well, if their people like them that much, and you've tried to tell them that this person isn't really as good as you think they are, and they still disagree with you, then there's kind of a point where you're like, well, okay, you do you, I'm doing me, and just going on because especially on social networking, I've kind of gotten to the point where it's probably a bad idea to get involved in any kind of argument of any sort on the internet because it just never stops. And no, you don't need that level of negativity in your life. So.
Oh, Dow posted another comment. Has to do with what we're talking about.
Mm.
Yeah.
It says what those negative people still haven't understood is that the more you talk about something, whatever it is, you're still promoting that thing in a way. Silence is the best for the things you dislike. Absolutely. I know. I know. That is actually. I'm so glad you mentioned that because that is so true. Every time there's a YouTube drama, do you know who benefits the most from this YouTube drama? the person that the drama is about, because you're giving them free advertising. Even if people are just going to watch them to see what the fight is about, they're actually giving them traffic. So yeah, it's exactly that's exactly what Doll is saying, and I agree 100%. You're actually helping the people you're negative about. The more you talk about them, the more airtime you're giving them, and that is not just about writers, and it's not just YouTube dramas. This is politics. This is news. This
Life
is
is
life in general. The more you talk about it, the more it just makes everything worse. So it's really hard, and that's kind of because I'm one of those guys. I'm like, no, there's someone wrong on the internet. I have to set them straight. And then as I type like 100 words, I'm like, am I going to convince them? No, I will not convince them. So why forgive the F bomb, but why the fuck am I doing this? And then I'm like, delete, and
I'm glad you gave the. Let me alert you. Remember when you just read that last week and you're like, oh wait, I should have probably said that there's some language I'm about to say.
yeah, it's kind of unfortunately I don't do the whole thingy, but I try to moderate my language, but it's a bit hard because, as I'm sure Maggie can attest, my characters use language a lot, so they're in my head all the time. So it's kind of hard sometimes to
Yeah.
filter that out because it just it's kind of a thing. But yeah, so that my point about it was just like, why argue with people you do not know on the internet about anything, because you're not actually fixing anything, you're not changing anything, and you're actually just adding to their stereotypes most of the time. So you kind of lose the argument the moment you actually engage.
Yeah.
And sad and really annoying, but that is how the life on the internet seems to be working now. Yeah. So let's see. Doll says that author tuber is my mortal enemy, and I haven't said a word on my channel. Awesome, Doll,
Good
you
for
are
you.
awesome. I am telling you, you are epic. I am so impressed with you. No, I agree with you. Is that same that author I mentioned? I've only ever mentioned her in private to like other people. This is the first time in like 5 years I mentioned her, and I wouldn't even have if it wasn't relevant to the conversation. Because exactly that, I didn't want to start a drama because it's not worth it. I'm just going to lose. There's just nothing that it's actually mentioning a drama, mentioning mortal enemies, mentioning anything. It's just not going to come back in a good way to me. So I just decide, you know what, I'm going to grit my teeth and pretend this person doesn't exist. And but it's hard. It's really hard. Sometimes you just have so much anger and stuff, and it just builds up, and you kind of lose your mind for a moment. But then you just have to get to that point where like, no, 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 no. Remember what you're
Rethink before you hit the send.
yeah. I'm 100% for write it all out and then leave it overnight and then just deleting it because then it is out of your system, but it's not where it can be damaging, which is really important. So Dol says, I'm the very same. I was going to leave a whole essay of a comment on a video, and I just deleted the thing and went to do something else. Yeah, I think in the end, that just ends up being the best thing. The things I regret writing or commenting is the things where I lost my temper because A, they're usually not as well thought through as I would want them to be. And secondly, once they're out there, you can't get them back. So yeah, so it's generally just something that I just try to avoid because long-term strategy, I think that's the thing with people on social media. It's that thing of, yes, you can share your hot take on XYZ, but should you? And the general answer is no, you should not. It's wildly off-brand, mildly to severely off-putting, and damaging to your reputation. So probably not the best thing to do. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do. But like I said, I'm infamous at like ignoring my own advice. So I hope I will remember that piece of advice next time I get mad at people. But I have a very short temper, so I try not to do it. So yeah, right. I think we are finally to the comments. But now the question is, do you have to go?
I can maybe do a short write-in, but yeah, I'll have to pretty much go after that.
Okay. All right. So let's do. Shall we do a 10-minute sprint? And then we can at least say that we did our minimum requirements to call this a writing without making people
Hitting
feel
those
like.
minimum requirements.
All right. So I'm going to count down, and then I'm just for in case people are wondering why this goes silent, we put our video on mute while we work. All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and Okay, and time. How did you guys do?
Let's see. 3:36.
Nice. Nicely done.
Nice.
I did 0.
Could you not get it to load?
No, I actually did the smart thing and I loaded it ahead of time. What I did not realize until just now was that it screwed up my formatting again.
Oh no.
So yeah, and my brain is kind of like, this is a bad font. I cannot concentrate with this bad font. So I cannot wait until the day that I don't have to use Word anymore. I cannot wait. You guys cannot imagine. It's just so annoying. And Sky says, oh, so first, Doll says, I improved my query letter.
Oh, yay.
Right on. Well done. Very cool. Going after that goal of traditional publishing. If you need some feedback or something like that, you can get in touch with me and I'll help you out for what it's worth. I can help at least give you another pair of eyes to look at it. SD Hegies or Sky said she did 301 words. Well done. That's
Good job.
nice enough. And then Doll says, I'm planning on targeting Becky Chambers' literary agent. Nice. Going in with a strategy. Good idea. Naked Firefly says 0. I helped my son set up a YouTube channel and then the baby held me hostage.
Oh,
Also good. Also a good way to spend your
okay.
Monday. It's always a good way. And Doll says, wish me luck because I'm going to need it. Good luck. We really hope that it works out.
Yeah,
We're rooting for you on our side here.
definitely.
Right, so excerpts. Anyone want to share excerpts? Do you have time for excerpts? That's the question because I'm seeing you like.
Maybe like a short one. I remember last time we were talking about she was about to approach like this room which wait. The singer, she was following the singer, who, you know, very mysterious. We're trying to figure out like what they're up to, and we know that their intent is probably to kill someone. And then the thing was that at the end we didn't realize who the singer was actually going to attack. So if I can find that really quickly, then I'll read that for you.
Yay! Right.
So,
and while you are getting to that point, let me just say that if anyone wants to share excerpts, please just put it into the chat. I'll try and do my best dramatic voice as I'm reading it. It's sometimes fun because it's obviously unprepared reading. But yeah, you get to hear your work read by a full-blooded South African. So, all right. Maggie, over to you when you have a moment. Or let me see where I'm going to do my.
okay. I can't exactly remember where I stopped last time.
Okay.
But I found a general point so that even if someone didn't catch the last stream, hopefully they'll still kind of understand what point we're at.
Okay.
So here we go. So the singer strode away, and Kira followed with some apprehension. The clink of metal startled her, and she heard the grunts as several fairies woke up. The Wraith Fairy had stopped singing, and it seemed that had ended the spell. She tagged behind at a safe distance, not wanting it to change its mind, but also wanting to prevent it from seeking its target again. She needn't have worried, and went to the same room where it had entered and crawled onto the window ledge. Beneath the mat of hair, Kira could swear it grinned. Then it leaped off, falling silently. She rushed to the window, but when she peered down, it was gone. Her breath left her lungs in a rush, leaving her strangely deflated. Every hurried action with her muscles and the scraping of her nails ached now. In concurrence with that, her heart beat at a sluggish pace. She could leave now, return to the imps camp and pretend this had all been a dream, but she needed to be sure. She needed to know that the guest had survived. While it had seemed as if the Wraith Fairy had raised its arm for the final blow, what if it had been the second or third? The strange blade's ominous presence heightened her uncertainty of whether she'd actually stopped the murder. Perhaps she just succeeded in becoming known to a dangerous fairy intent on killing those involved with the unseelie court. With much less haste than before, she retraced her steps to the victim's room. The door still lay cracked, and she paused, listening to the rustle of staff further below. If she was caught in here, and the guest was dead, then she'd come across as the murderer. Her fingers froze as she tapped a nervous rhythm lightly against the wood. A door slammed down the hall, and she darted into the room. The moonlight made its lethal strike through the window, and with trepidation she trudged across to the bed. A faint whistle of air startled her enough that she leapt back. It continued, and she realized that it came from the bed. Was the victim taking their last breaths? Had she been too late after all? Her steps felt leaden as she took up the side the wraith fairy had been on. The whistle dropped through the air again, and her eyes widened. He was asleep. This fairy had slept through all of it and not wakened when the spell broke. The surprise transitioned into knee-bending disbelief as she gazed at the bed's occupant. The wraith fairy's intended target was Sal. Okay, so the only thing is, I don't know if you really know who Sal is, but he came up earlier in the story, and I didn't even realize he was going to come back. And so there's this moment where it's like, who's the target? And all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, what are you doing here? And then I was like, oh gosh, I don't know what he's doing here, so I got to figure that out.
I can't wait to see where you're going with it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We had some comments.
Yeah. Did I mention how much I love your descriptions?
Oh, thanks.
Alright, so
I'm glad.
Alright, so okay, Sky shared an excerpt. She says her voice cracked and she cleared her throat before trying again. Can I have some water? You're taking this rather well, all things considered. So that's her excerpts, and she says that's actually the last bit I wrote before the sprint had ended.
Oh.
Nice. Yeah, cool. And then Doll says, I can't paste it, it's too long. So that's too bad, I'm sorry. But hopefully one day you can maybe just, even if it's just a sentence, but yeah, write out a little sentence if you want to. All right, so let me see where I can. I'm going to also just read a little bit from what I had edited the last time, because I'm a little bit behind between my excerpts and where I left off. And we had that devastating moment with Darian and the wrists, which, guys, seriously, or even I have to say, that is like, oh. But yeah, so now it's right after that. So she did the thing that she very specifically did not want to do for very good reasons, which is she fell asleep. Right, so that's where we are now.
Ah, yes. Oh gosh. Okay.
This is evil writer laughing now, just so you know. Okay. Darian returned with a chair, but stopped when he saw her asleep. Callan followed his gaze to her sleeping body. Chills raced through her. It wasn't the first time she'd had an out-of-body experience like this, but the previous time had been with Fallon trying to force himself on her. So she hadn't really had a moment to take it in. In fact, she hadn't even realized until that time that her dreams were real. So this was really her, staring down at herself while she slept. Weird. Extremely weird. Why was this happening, though? Usually, her dream dragged her to something important going on, so she wouldn't have been able to see. Sorry, let me try that again. Usually, her dream dragged her to something important going on that she wouldn't have been able to see otherwise. She glanced back at Darian, frowning at him. He remained rooted in place, still watching her sleep. They seemed different somehow compared to the dream she'd had of his meeting in Lurien. He hadn't even remotely seemed aware of her presence this time. The previous time she'd had a dream featuring him, he hadn't been aware of her presence either. He shook his head and set the chair down quietly, then fetched the book he kept stashed behind the flower pot. It made her smile. It seemed so incongruous and so totally him at the same time. He dropped into the chair and started reading. Without someone to see, he seemed to deflate. His posture slumped, his eyes faded, his expression grew troubled. It made her heart ache. He seemed to be more than exhausted. He seemed weary to the depths of his soul. Lost. Callan took a step towards him, but darkness stirred around her. She froze, her heart thundering in the back of her throat. No, 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 no. Murk and shadow oozed down the walls, drowning her vision in blackened menace. Spilled around her like a flood of ink. Crying out, she staggered away from the darkness, but then there was no light, nothing at all. I'll stop there. So
Oh my gosh. I love the moments between them, or just even like where they're in the same kind of scene. It is always so interesting with that dynamic. Oh gosh.
yeah,
Okay. Well, I'm still waiting for this third book, but
yeah, I'm getting there. I'm actually really starting to feel happy about where this is going. So it's just going through the whole thing because, like I said, especially because I edit myself, I have to be like super careful so that I don't
Yeah.
stuff it up because I don't want someone to go like, she's a good writer, but her editing really leaves much to be desired. So that's the last thing I want. So I'm just like
Yeah.
really careful about it. But yeah, but it's there's actually like this morning in the shower, my brain was like, ooh, wait, there's another scene we should write. And I'm like, no, wait, no. I don't want to write more scenes because the more scenes I write, the more I still have left to edit. But I'm like, but it is really a good scene to write because it would show like completely a different side to Gawain. So I'm like,
Ooh.
yes.
Gawain, too. It's been a while, actually, I think, since we've heard anything from him.
Yeah, but it's only because I'm editing so slowly.
Okay, fair.
But you kind of like just because you're seeing him once a week, and the odds are, like 1 in 5 that he's going to be the guy present in the scene. But like, yeah, but yeah. I also love Gawain. I love Darren and Gawain and Quinn and like all of them. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to stop fangirling now. All right, so let me just see. Oh yeah, so Doll says, OMG, you're writing about OBEs. OMFG. We need to become CPs. Holy shit, me too. Yeah, no, definitely. I'm always looking for CPs. Just not right now, but definitely in the very near future because I will need another editing pass after this one because it's a big thing. But yeah, she kind of it's kind of a spoiler for the first 2 books, but it's not so much it's kind of out of body experience, but it's also she's got like a special gift that she can travel, so like it's not really travel, but her soul goes places, but that she's not really in control of at the moment, which is kind of exactly the same as OBEs, but also not. The mechanism is a little different. So, but yeah, Megan's like, ooh, yes, yeah. So and then Doll's like, oh, MFG, I'm so glad I joined the stream. Sorry I'm fangirling on your writing. And then she shared like a bunch of hearts. Oh, thanks. I'm really glad you guys, and that you specifically enjoy our writing because it's awesome to share writing for this reason, to have people appreciate it. So it's kind of where my heart goes pitter patter when people are like, oh, I love what you're doing. Because especially because I haven't been able to actually publish in a while. So this is where I get my hit of like positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
And then Doll says, I'm writing about genetically engineered people living in space.
Ooh.
Some of them have the skill of astral projection, so much religious about that. And gosh, I found a like-minded writer. Yay! The story sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's exciting. It'd be great if you have the opportunity, I guess maybe in future streams, of sharing some of that or talking a little bit about it, because that's really interesting.
That does sound interesting, like very almost not quite, but like a similar kind of thing. Like in my brain, I'm kind of having this picture almost like Star Wars, like with
Okay.
the not necessarily with the same mechanisms and stuff. So I'm not saying like she's copying, but more like that kind of feeling of like there's fantasy and sci-fi is like kind of a little bit together, and it's a bit magic and a bit sci-fi at the same time. So I love that kind of thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm like
Actually futuristic type as well, just from our world. Who can say?
Yeah, exactly. And then Doll says, "No, Star Wars. No, I don't mean it like that." It's like, no, I'm just saying it's just like kind of the feeling, not the And she says no magic at all. Sorry, purely sci-fi. Okay,
Say
now
that.
so I'm interested to see how that works. Hmm. So you have done nothing to diminish my interest in your book, though. So,
Yeah, it sounds fascinating, really.
yeah, it does.
Awesome.
All right. So I think you have to leave, don't you, Maggie?
Yeah, I definitely gotta go now. But I'm so glad that I managed to actually join this time as well.
Yeah, me too. And I'm glad that despite my computer's best efforts to ruin my stream, I managed to get back. So it's very nice to know that, unlike Hangouts, if you get out of the stream, you can actually get back in. So, yeah. All right. But then you and I will get in touch about when we are going to do the follow-up
Yes.
stream. Yes. All right. We'll talk tomorrow-ish or whatever.
Cool.
But all right.
Yeah.
Have a good day, and thanks so much to everyone who's joined, and also to Doll and to Ava, who are our new people who stopped by. I want to say a special thank you to them as well. And just again, I see Maggie just left already, but just thank you for hanging out with me again, Maggie. And I'll see you guys real soon. And all the best with your writing. And let's get this thing done. All right. So love you lots, guys. Bye.